But in the meantime, this is another thing that popped up as I was scrolling the other morning. And I sat there and I broke down in tears. Sheriff Karl Leonard from the Chesterfield County, Virginia there. You seem like a guy that spits nails and has seen some of the worst of people and the best of people. And what I watched on my Facebook was Jelly Roll with some of your guys on stage with him singing. And I thought this was the most amazing moment. I'll play this for you, Sheriff. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, or perhaps you've had people send it to you. Here's Jelly Roll on stage with your guys, and then we'll talk to you about this program. I'm just you ready? There's Jelly Roll, who's been arrested more than 40 times at the age of 15, armed robbery. He's been in and out of jail, back and forth. He's had a very, very tough life. And then he gets up on stage, and he ends up with the, I think there's probably altogether, I'm going to guess, maybe 4. Can you play it for me, Joe? This is the country star Jelly Roll talking about his moving visit
Today
there.
I had the most unique experience I've ever had in a jail, a local county jail that has a program that is teaching people how to recover the right way, and through therapy and through music, through redemption, and giving them real second chances. I left there and I couldn't quit thinking about it, and I called that local sheriff and I said, I know this sounds crazy, but
talking about you, Sheriff,
to see if the dream could be real. Would you please bring those inmates to this show tonight so they could see the dream? If you would please give these young men a second, just show them that it can happen, because it happened for me, and I was in this same kind of place. I can't believe I'm fixing to say this, but that sheriff is such a visionary. He said, you know what, I will bring those men to come sing for these people tonight in Virginia.
That's you,
These
Carl.
young men woke up in county jail, and they're going to go to sleep in the county jail. But for the next hour, they get to live like us for a minute and sing a little music. Is that okay with y'all?
And then they sang. How'd you feel, Sheriff, when you saw your guys up there?
I'll tell you, I was standing just behind them off stage, and I was behind them looking out at the audience, 17,000 people, and I'm saying, these guys are going to choke up. They're going to lock up, and I wouldn't blame them. I said it's going to be a shame because they're going to get up on stage and they're going to freeze, and everybody would understand why they would freeze. I mean, 2 hours ago you were in your jail cell. Now you're in front of 17,000 people. But they got up on that stage, and I could not believe they knocked it out of the ballpark. I just can't believe how good they did under those conditions, and it was such a sense of pride for them. But here's the big thing. It wasn't about those 4 people. And I can tell you the number of emails and text messages and letters I've received since then from across not only the United States but other countries. It just validates that those 4 represented everybody who's struggling today, everybody who feels, they have no hope, that they're worthless. They represented so many people, and their performance gave so many people hope in their own lives.
The program is called HARP. It's Helping Addicts Recover Progressively program. It's there in Chesterfield County Jail. I don't know if other people are doing this in other places, but brag about your numbers, the recidivism rate, the recovery rate. It's quite remarkable what you've been able to accomplish.
Right, and it's a very unique and unconventional program, and quite frankly, we break all the rules, which is evident by taking 4 inmates out of the jail to a concert. But, I've been in this job for over 40 years, and what we've been doing in jails has not worked for over 100 years. It hasn't. So we've got a different plan, and we're reaching deep into people to identify that underlying trauma, which causes you that pain or void that leads you to use drugs. We've had this program now. 8 years ago, I started this program out of sheer frustration from the number of people dying from primarily heroin overdoses back then. Now it's fentanyl. And we have had 2 independent studies come in, long-term studies to validate the program. And we are seeing a recidivism rate of 23%. Now, the national average is around 70%.
Wow.
We have about a 23% recidivism, which means 77% of people leaving our jail don't come back and become the productive members of society that we all want them to be.
Just looking at you, you don't seem like the type of guy that would take a kind of a flyer on stuff that seems unconventional. What was it that turned in you that thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot?
Just my sheer frustration. I remember clearly walking, and I was a police officer for 31 years before I ran and became sheriff 11 years ago. So I've been in this business for 43 years now. And I just remember one day at the jail, inmates were coming in, and they would pass by my deputies, and they would call them by their name. And I'm like, well, how do you know him? Well, this is his fourth time here. Oh, he's been here, 7 times. I'm like, and we're okay with this? We're okay with this revolving door or recidivism? And I just became frustrated with that. So we've got to do something different. We got to prepare people to get out and reintegrate it to the community and become the productive member and stop that revolving door of in and out of jail. So it was a personal drive.
Right. Have you been able to export this somewhere else? Are people, because of what Jelly Roll did and what those 4 guys did on that stage, are people calling you from other county jails saying, how do we get a program like that in place?
Quite frankly, we get calls from all over. We have people come down and visit and see it firsthand from all over. But when I go back to breaking the rules, we do break rules. And we are very unconventional. And honestly, a lot of people aren't willing to take that risk, and I don't blame them. It's a risk. But you have to be able to really get out of your comfort box. And that's how we break this cycle. What we've been doing for 100 years hasn't worked. We've got to do something different.
I mean, the drugs are part of it. So, I talked about this the other day that, people have some trauma in their life and then they take the drugs and the alcohol in order to, numb the pain. But then in order to support the drug habit, you got to break the law to get the drugs. And then you do the drugs. That's part of the crime. And then stealing the stuff to sell the stuff to buy the drugs. It becomes this, cycle. But you got the data behind it. If everybody else has got a recidivism rate of, 70% and you can brag 20% or whatever, I mean, I would just assume is this what stops people? Is it too expensive? I mean, I watched a whole documentary on how this works. It doesn't seem to really cost a lot to have these guys go through these physical exercises to address this trauma.
No, and you're absolutely right. It's not about the drugs or the alcohol. That's not the problem with addiction. Drugs and alcohol are the temporary solution to the problem. The problem is that underlying trauma, that void in your life or that pain in your life that causes you to run to drugs to mask the pain. So in our program, we don't even talk about drug use or alcohol use because that's not the problem. We do deep dives into you to find out what that trauma is and then give you the tools, the resources, the skills to deal with that trauma other than having to go to drugs.
Yeah.
It is a cost associated with this. But if I can invest $10,000 into you and I stop you from coming back every 6 months, in my jail, it costs $48,000 a year to house one inmate. So that's taxpayer money, $48,000 a year. If I can invest $10,000 on you and you don't come back, I'm saving taxpayers so much money.
Just briefly in the time we have, what were the guys like in the van going back? I mean, they probably could have run back to that jail, right?
It's funny because I personally rode with them with one other deputy. It was just the 6 of us in that van, and it reminded me of taking my children when they were young to events, and how they talk in the back and they don't think your parents are listening.
Yeah.
These 4 were so high on the energy and the adrenaline. But one of them made a statement that was just so profound. He said, Sheriff, I got more high today from that performance than I've ever been high from any drug I've ever used.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get them to experience.
Right, because it's not about performing in front of 17,000. It's about pushing yourself into a place that is not comfortable and then knowing that you can achieve something that is good.
Exactly right. And our whole goal is to make you uncomfortable because when you're uncomfortable, you live.
Yeah.
When you get comfortable, you die.
Well,
and it was putting them in that position that gave them that rush of being so uncomfortable.
Well, Sheriff Karl Leonard, thank you for spending some time with us. And next time Jelly Roll's back in town, you've got to get up and sing too, okay?
Oh, I don't know about that. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. I got family over in Federal Way, and I love the Seattle area. It's close and near and dear to my heart.
All right. Well, have yourself a fabulous Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas as well. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Same to you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks, Sheriff. All right, Nate, here they are.
Nothing without my sins. I can't pretend I'm not unready. Been the whiskey glass left half empty. See the bright lights a few times and that's what's in me. Never thought I'd see the day where I'll forgive myself and say
Oh, it's great.